At the time of dissolution, Lord Shiva's hair is scattered, and he pierces the rulers of the different directions with his trident. He laughs and dances proudly, scattering their hands like flags, as thunder scatters the clouds all over the world. Purport. Prasuti, who appreciated the power and strength of her son-in-law, Lord Shiva, is describing what he does at the time of dissolution. This description indicates that the strength of Lord Shiva is so great that Daksha's power could not be set in comparison to it. At the time of dissolution, Lord Shiva, with his trident in hand, dances over the rules of the different planets, and his hair is scattered, just like the clouds are scattered over all directions in order to plunge the different planets into incessant torrents of rain. In the last phase of dissolution, all the planets become inundated with water, and that inundation is caused by the dancing of Lord Shiva. This dance is called Pralaya dance, or dance of dissolution. Prasuti could understand that the dangers ahead resulted not only from Daksha's having neglected her daughter, but also because of his neglecting the prestige and honor of Lord Shiva. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So again, the translation is, at the time of dissolution, Lord Shiva's hair is scattered, and he pierces the rulers of the different directions with his trident. He laughs and dances proudly, scattering their hands like flags, as thunder shatters the clouds all over the world. So I wanted to point out something minor here. You see how it says at the time of dissolution, Lord Shiva, with his hair is scattered, and then it says that he laughs and dances proudly, and then he scatters their arms, referring to the Dikpalas, the lords of the directions. So another way to read this is the word is so it says Udita Astra. So he's got these upraised weapons, and then Do, it's translated as hand, Do Dvijan. So Dvaja is a flag. So Doho, it means in the sense of handling, but also more often it's translated as arms. So if we were to just replace the words their hands, in other words, the controllers of the directions, so it would say he laughs and dances proudly, scattering his arms like flags as thunder shatters the clouds. That's another way that this can be translated, which is how Banuswami translates it from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He says, translation of this verse can also be read as, with scattered locks, piercing the direction with his trident, waving his flag-like arms, holding upraised weapons, and breaking the directions by the roar of his loud laughter. Shiva dances at the time of universal destruction. So, interesting. So, as I said, this is going to be a little bit of an elaborate PowerPoint. I'm really dependent on visuals in order to try and explain the things that I'm trying to relate. So this is going to be all about Lord Shiva's majesty, his frightening, awesome, great power. He's known as Hara, the destroyer, or the Lord of Destruction. So we're going to explain it in 5 major points. The first will be, let's go to the next slide. The first point is that of trying to understand Lord Shiva's tattva, his expansion, which is between Vishnu tattva and that of Jiva-tattva. And then second point is how different festivals in honor of Shiva, especially like Sivaratri, It has been adapted by Western cultures in surprising ways. Just like Christmas was hijacked by the Christians in order to take advantage of a festival that was well established in the pagan world for the winter solstice, and they wanted to celebrate Christmas. So similarly, Sivaratri has also come down through the centuries, and now it appears in some pretty strange ways. The third point is about Rudraksha beads. Rudra and Aksha. Aksha means eyes. These beads come from the tears of compassion from the eyes of Lord Shiva. They have a very powerful effect. Unfortunately, usually the so-called followers of Lord Shiva use these, and even though they have a very powerful effect, they're usually counteracted by the terrible activities that they do, because they don't reform their character, their activities. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And then the fourth major point is about Rudra's expansions. The Rudra expansions are manifested from Anantasesha at the time of annihilation. They come from the fire of his breathing. And not only that, they also reside within our own body and consciousness, and also within the elements. So we'll speak about those 11 expansions. And then the fifth point will be a discussion about Nataraja. Lord Shiva has officially 9 different forms, or 9 deity forms. And one of these, perhaps the most famous, is Nataraja, which represents the destruction of the universe. It's a very powerful form, and every movement, every gesture that he's making has very significant meaning. So we're going to review that. Okay, so first point is about Lord Shiva, Siva-tattva. What is his position? So this may be too small for people. I don't know if you can really see what's going on here, but these are Krishna's different expansions. The primeval Lord, the Adi Purusha. So the first expansion of the Lord, if you see my pointer here, I think you'll be able to see it. First expansion is Lord Balaram. The only difference between Krishna and Balaram is whitish, whereas Krishna is blackish. Otherwise, he's the same in every respect, except that he considers him to be his supreme worshipful object. First expansion is Balaram, and then from Balaram, everything else is manifested in the spiritual and material worlds. Everything comes from him. The first thing that comes from him is the first Adi Chaturvyuha, Aniruddha, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, and Pradyumna. And then from that first quadruple expansion comes the first Narayana. So if you're looking at this chart, if it's not too small for you, you see that it goes to the left down here to all of the different avatars, especially is the Das avatars. So those are all eternally existent in the spiritual world in their own Vaikuntha planets. Those come from that first Narayana expansion, and also you'll see to the right that Krishna has his eternal consort Srimati Radharani, his energy, his Shakti, and that Shakti follows him everywhere. So when the Narayana expansion is there, she also expands as his consort, as the Mahalakshmi. And so from that Narayan expansion comes the second Chaturvyuha, the second set of Aniruddha, Vasudeva, Pradyumna, and Mahasankarshan. So this Mahasankarshan is what we're going to talk about. Very important. So there's a color chart over on the other side. Again, if you can see this, if it's not too small, there's in the darkest color, kind of a skin tone, that's Vishnu-tattva. Then Shakti-tattva, beginning with Srimati Radharani, is in kind of a pink, and then a lighter skin tone is the Shiva-tattva, and then the last, kind of a greenish, pale greenish, is the Jiva-tattva. So you can kind of follow along. I'll have to point out there is a mistake here where it says Garbhadakshay Vishnu is in the wrong color. He's Vishnu-tattva. But anyway, from The second Chaturvyuha comes Mahasankarshan. So Mahasankarshan, another name for him is Ishana. Ishana is a very important manifestation of the Lord. This is in the form of Lord Shiva. He looks like Lord Shiva, but he's a Vishnu-tattva. He's not Shiva. He's in the what appears to be the form of Lord Shiva. These are all Krishna's different forms and manifestations. So that Ishana expands into two, and that's Sadashiva and the Mahavishnu, the Karana Dakshayi Vishnu. They expand from him both Vishnu Tattva. So we'll go to the next slide. Here we go. Okay, so I've shown this before. I think at least on one occasion, maybe two occasions. This is this huge poster I have on my wall. It takes up the entire quarter of the wall, and I had it scanned once. So this is what it looks like when it's scanned. Of course, it's going to be too small for you to discern what's going on, but you can basically see that on the top we've got Goloka Vrindavan, underneath that we have the Vaikuntha planets, and then we come down here to the material world, and then one of those universes with our Chaturmukhi Brahma is displayed. So now we're going to zoom in a little bit more. So this is zooming in on the Vaikuntha planets and then a portion of the material world. So up here at the top, the northeastern corner, this is where Ishana resides, or the Mahasankarshan. So this can be said to be the first Vaikuntha planet. If we're talking from the view down here from the material world, this would be the first Vaikuntha planet. And in this corner, on the other side of this Vaikuntha planet, is the cloud of the material world, where the Viraja is in the Karna ocean. But because it's hard to display, and it would look like, oh, it's almost next to Goloka, it's put down here at the very bottom. It's like reproduced. It's also Ekapad Vibhuti. There's a Tripad Vibhuti, Ekapad Vibhuti, and all together that encompasses the entire material and spiritual world. So you see that on the left-hand side. It says Devi Dham, Mahesh Dham, Hari Dham, and then Goloka Vrindavan. So this is all explained in the Sri Brahma Samhita. So one portion of this, one division or classification of the entire cosmos is Mahesh Dham. So these four, Mahesh Dham, Devi Dham, Hari Dham, and Goloka Vrindavan, that's the whole of creation. There's nothing beyond that, and these are all unlimited. We've discussed this before, that how can you divide infinity, but it can be done. If you look at the number system, there's beginning with natural numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And then you've got, on top of that, you've got integers, which are negative numbers, includes negative numbers. And then you can include the rational numbers, which are all fractions, like that. So those are all numbers. And then you've got irrational numbers, which are like pi, square roots, etc. So all of those four number sets, each one of them have unlimited numbers within them. But yet they're different sets that can be divided. So similarly, Devi Dham, the abode that we're in right now, and Mahesh Dham, etc. These are all different portions or classifications of infinity. So this Ishana, or Mahasankarshan, he resides in this Vaikuntha planet in the northeast section, and this is also known as Sada Shiva Loka. And it's also called Mahakala Dham, depending on what side of the causal of the spectrum. If you're in Vaikuntha or if you're in Devi Dham, how it appears to be. So there's two aspects of it. You know, it's just like the material world is compared to a cloud, a dark cloud, and one portion of the spiritual world. So if you ever go on a plane, if it's really overcast, It's completely dark underneath, and as soon as you pop through the clouds on the other side, it's absolutely brilliant effulgence. It's the same cloud, depending if you're looking from underneath or from top, it appears in two different ways. Similarly, Sadashiva-loka has two aspects, Sadasiva-loka and Mahakali Dham. So, yes. So Shiva, he has different identities. He is his Lord is Lord Sankarshan. He meditates upon Lord Sankarshan, and it's similar to the type of deep meditation that yogis have on their Ishtadev. If one is perfected in yogic siddhi, then he will be benefited by his Ishtadev. He'll go to their planet. So similarly, if one worships Lord Shiva, not as independently of Lord Vishnu, but worships him as the greatest devotee of Lord Vishnu, who he meditates upon Sankarshan. If one understands him to be like that, like the Adi Guru, then he will go to Sadashiva-loka. Not the others that worship him independently of Vishnu and see him as an independent deity. They're stuck in the material world in Devidam, and maybe they can go to Mount Kailas. That's something different. It's very similar, I think, to Jesus. If you worship Jesus, Srila Prabhupada gave the indication that Lord Jesus has his own planet, and you can go to that planet and make further advancements there. So next slide is this. We're zooming in more on that bottom portion, Devidam. And you can still see Sadashiva-loka on top, and then in the bottom half is this Mahakala Dham. So to explain what this all means is Sadashiva, he expands himself into Shambhu. So here we have a picture of Shambhu. Karanadakshayi Vishnu, when he feels it's time for creation, when it's time to breathe out again, he agitates his Icha Shakti. Icha means desire, his energy of desire. And in that glance, he glances at Rama Devi, who's an expansion ultimately of Srimati Radharani, of Mahalakshmi. And it's a consort of Karanadakshayi Vishnu. When she sees the glance of the Lord, she's infused and with the glance, and she understands the desire of the Lord. And because of this, she, from her shadow, she manifests herself again as Maya Devi. So you see here how there's the glance of the Lord and is being blocked by Rama Devi. So what's in back of an object? A shadow. So the chaya, the shadow of Rama Devi, is this Maya, or the illusory energy of the Lord, who's hidden from the Lord. She's in the shadows. And then this glance is carried by Rama Devi to Shambhu. So Shambhu, at this point, is Vishnu-tattva. He's an expansion of Sadashiva. However, for the purposes of creation, he unites with Maya Devi and covers the living entity first with false ego. And as soon as he's delivered the glance of Lord Vishnu, then he changes. So he unites with Maya, just the yoni with linga. This is described in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Yonishu Kaunteya, Murtaya Sambhavantiya, Tasang Brahmamo and Yonir, Aham Bija Pradapita. So it describes that all of the entities, they come from the yoni, from the they take birth from material nature, and Aham Bija Pradapita. This is Krishna is utilizing the efficient cause, Lord Shiva, in order to produce all living entities. So he's the father of all living entities. So when Shambhu when he touches material nature, then he turns into Siva-tattva. So from Shambhu he turns into Shiva, and he is of the position of Siva-tattva at that time. Otherwise, before that, he's a completely different person. He's Vishnu-tattva as Shambhu. So that Lord is the Lord of Mahakaladam. So you can see here in the chart, Mahakaladam, it's the same Vaikuta planet, but it's shining as described in the Brahma Samhita, but on the bottom portion where time is acting, this is where it's called Mahakaladam. And this Shambhu, who is now Shiva, that's when he gets his Trishur, his trident, and that each of those points is past, present, and future. That's what it represents. Everything in this world is controlled by time. So in the spiritual world, or let's say in the Karna ocean, there is pradhana. Pradhana means the unmanifested material energy. And when it comes in contact with Maya, then it becomes the Mahatattva. So it's just like this. Pradhana is unmanifested, whereas the Mahatattva is manifested just as much as if you have a car. If there's nothing but a room full of parts on the factory floor, it's unmanifested. All of the parts are there, but they're not assembled. Once they're assembled, then by contact with the efficient cause, then it becomes a car as we know it. So that would be a manifestation of Prakriti in its manifested state. So both of these situations, they're eternal. In that they exist. It's not that they don't exist, but one is temporarily manifested and the other is unmanifested. Just like Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita, Bhutpa Grama Saevayam Bhutpa Bhutpa Purliyate, which means that the living entities are constantly being created and destroyed. So Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, he expands from Karandadakshaya Vishnu. He enters the material world through the different coverings, taking a portion of the living entities with him, the jivas, and he lies down within the ocean of Garbhodak, and from his navel sprouts the lotus stem, and within that stem is all the karma and all the ingredients for creating the planetary systems. So I wanted to read. Oh, am I breaking up? Am I still breaking up? I see Chaitanya Leela says I'm breaking up. Anybody else has a comment about that? Because not much I can do if I'm breaking up. I usually have a good internet connection. But anyway, sorry about that. So Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, lying within the Garbhodak ocean, he's thinking about creation because he wants to benefit the living entities. And then there's this amazing 2 verses that we read in the 3rd canto, 8th chapter, about the manifestation of the universe. 13 and 14, it describes us that the subtle subject matter of creation on which the Lord's attention was fixed was agitated by the material modes of passion, and thus the subtle form of creation pierced through his abdomen, piercing through the sum total form of fruitive activities of the living entities. It took the shape of a bud of a lotus flower generated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, and by a supreme will it illuminated everything like the sun and dried up the vast waters of devastation. So this is this amazing description of how the lotus is effulgent white and just got so much power it dries up the water of devastation. And then it grows until Brahma is born in it. And then within that stem is all the ingredients, all the karma of the living entities, and actually it's just throbbing and effulgent. So after Brahma takes charge and he's enlightened by the Lord how to create, he utilizes those ingredients and he creates all the 14 planetary systems. Once that's done, then he leaves. He leaves the Garbha ocean, and he is invited by Lord Brahma to live on his planet as a Mahapurusha with thousands of heads and thousands of arms to accept his offerings. And then he also leaves. He leaves Anantasesha there, but this Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, he goes to Siva-tattva, and he lies on the ocean of milk with another expansion of Shesha. So let's go to another portion, and this is what the universe looks like after the creation takes place. This is how it's manifested during the day of Lord Brahma. So this would take an hour to explain. So we're going to go over this very, very quickly and not go into detail. But at the bottom of this, if you can see it, there's a verse from the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, Sri Krishna Janma Kanda, 6.211, where it says, "For the earth the resting place is Lord Shesha. For Lord Shesha the resting place is the great tortoise beneath him, and for the tortoise the resting place is the wind. For the wind the resting place is I myself." So, again, not to go into detail because it would take too long. But as you can see here, we have Dhruvaloka, and then above Dhruvaloka is Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka. Satyaloka is it takes up almost half of the sky above the sun. And then Tapaloka is about half that size, Janaloka and Maharloka about half that size, and then all the other planetary systems are very, very small compared to that. But even that is huge compared to where we are right now. One of the reasons I'm showing you this is because in the verse it says, Swashula Sucharpita Diggajendraha. So the Diggajendras, that refers to the lords of the directions, which are the Diggajendras, are these elephants. They are huge. None of this is in scale. It would be impossible to put it into scale. But you see there's kind of like a shaded out area? That's a cone, and what that represents is the Loka Mountains, which extend all the way from Bhumandala up to Dhruvaloka, which is approximately 1 billion miles. And it's ascribed that these elephants, they are so big that below their knees are the Loka Mountains. They're huge. We just can't imagine. Within the Loka Mountains, on the outskirts of Bhumandala, that encompasses all of the planetary systems, and Dhruvaloka, the sun, the moon, earthly planet, all of these spheres, they're within that, just like it's a cup. It's in the shape of a lotus, and in that lotus, just like a cup, everything is within that. So we can imagine how tiny we are, this Earth globe. It's a little speck, and just imagine how tiny we are. We can't understand. It's just like we're an atom compared to the size of the universe. When it's described to be so many billions of miles across, that can't possibly be our Earth miles. Just like our lifespan is insignificant compared to that of Lord Brahma's, it's less than an instant. Similarly, their space is much, much larger than our space. So we have no idea how large this universe is, or it's fair to say how small we are in comparison to the universe. So the Dikpalas, the Dikkajendras described in this verse, are represented here. And at the bottom of the universe, it's very, very small. We see that Shesha remains there at the bottom. At the time of annihilation, he becomes angry that the living entities still have wasted so much time. Their precious human form of life, they still haven't elevated themselves. So he becomes angry, and then he starts to spit fire. And from that fire of devastation comes the Rudra, the 11 Rudra expansions of Lord Shiva. And the sun becomes 12 times hotter. So from fire from below, from the fire from the sun, everything becomes scorched and turned to ashes. Everything burns, and then after that, the Samvartika clouds come and they devastate everything. So that's also described here in the verse about Lord Shiva, what he does. So let's go to the next slide. So that concludes the first point. Here's the second point about how Lord Shiva, festivals in honor of Lord Shiva have come down even to popular culture in a very perverted way. There's a book by Patita Pavana and Abhay Mudra Mataji, which is interesting. Both of those names refer to Lord Shiva. Isn't that funny? Anyway, they wrote a book on Jyotish Shastra. They were on our Sangha years ago. They did a presentation. So they did a book about Jyotish with one chapter, actually one or two chapters about Lord Shiva. So they pointed out that Sivaratri is not the birthday of Lord Shiva, but actually it's the wedding day of Lord Shiva. It's very, very dear to him because it's when he marries officially Parvati. But this is a very auspicious day in Jyotish, in astrological calculations. It's very favorable for all kinds of occasions. It's a good time to plant trees, good time to plant vines, etc. So it came over centuries ago to the Greeks. Somehow they completely got it wrong, very perverted, but it's the same day, and they worship the Greek god Dionysus, which is the Lord of creation. Dionysus later on was taken on or incorporated into the Greek pantheon as Bacchus, who's the Lord of nature and also the Lord of wine, vines, drink, alcohol. So that day is celebrated. So this reminds us that Lord Shiva, yes, he drank the poison from the ocean of milk. So somehow or other, his followers, so-called followers, they smoke ganja, they take wine and all kinds of intoxication, trying to imitate Lord Shiva. But this is not approved. But it comes down, it was incorporated by Greek and Roman culture, so they celebrate the same day. The day is the 13th day of the Krishna Paksha, the light moon, the bright moon in the Magh Masa. So Magh Masa is February and March. It extends over that period in the Shravana Nakshatra, which means, for instance, this year it was February 13th. It was the evening of February 13th, 2018. And what happens on February the 14th? It's Valentine's Day. Isn't that interesting? So what happened is that just like Christmas was previously a pagan Roman and Greek holiday celebrating the winter solstice where they worship the sun, so because it was so ingrained within that culture, when the Holy Roman Empire took over, they absconded that day and made it Christmas, even though Christmas actually should take place sometime in the spring. But anyway, it celebrates. So similarly, Sivaratri, the marriage of Shiva to Parvati, it's known now as Valentine's Day, Saint Valentine's Day. So interesting how that works. We even see now. Okay, we'll go to number 3. Point number 3, Rudraksha. This is amazing. Rudra, Lord Shiva, his eyes are called Aksha, Rudraksha. So what these Rudraksha beads are is that it's described in the Shiva Purana. that once Lord Shiva was meditating upon his Lord Shankarshan with an intense desire with compassion for the fallen souls of this world, and he wanted to give them moksha. He wants to teach them devotional service to his Lord, Sankarshan. And from his tears within meditation, when they fell from his eyes, he fell to the ground, the tears hardened in the soil, and then that's what produced the Rudraksha trees. So these beads, they're very, very powerful. They alleviate all kinds of suffering. There's different types of Rudraksha beads. If you look at them, there's from 1 to 14 different types, and you can tell by the different lines and markings on them what they represent. They're called mukis. Anyway, different faces that are on the beads. And they, a lot of it has to do with astrological influences. There's the Navagrahas, which we're going to mention very soon. Those are the different planets that influence us in mostly unfavorable ways. So these beads will alleviate all kinds of sufferings that the living beings have. Unfortunately, what happens is that people don't improve their characters, so they go back and commit the same sinful activities, the same kind of activities that puts them in a situation where they're suffering. But Rudraksha beads still are very, very powerful, and that's what their purpose are. They came from the compassionate tears of Lord Shiva's eyes. That's why they're called Rudrakshas. And you can think about this in a similar way that well, I would say it's like 3 different ways. Lord Jesus, I think, he also has a parallel in some ways to Lord Shiva in as far as his compassion for others. I'm saying this because I had some profound experiences in my lifetime before coming in contact with Krishna consciousness when I was quite young, probably 5 or 6. I was at an event, and there's hundreds of kids there, and they were giving away some prizes as model airplanes. It was at an Air Force base, and I so much wanted that model airplane, and I prayed to Jesus so fervently. I mean, I really felt like I made a connection with him, and I just prayed, please make me win this model airplane. And they were rolling the barrel, and they picked a name out of it, and out of those hundreds of kids, my name was announced. And I knew at that point that he had done that. I really made a connection with him. And you find that with Jesus, that his followers, he's very, very merciful, similar to Lord Shiva, because of his compassion for those who take shelter of him. He sometimes gives material things if you pray to him. I had another experience later on, again, before I was a devotee. I had taken some very dangerous hallucinogenic psychotropic drugs, and I had actually lost my mind. I mean, I was gone. And I had prayed to Jesus finally, please, 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 Lord, help me, and I will never do this again. And immediately, at that moment, when I made that connection, immediately I came down off of this terrible experience that I had. And I knew for sure that, he's real, he's there. Unfortunately, the problem is that after that, I forgot him. So in a similar way, Lord Jesus and Lord Shiva are the same in that they're very compassionate for the sufferings of others. They want everyone to be happy, and they also, both of them, to give all kinds of material opulence. And one thing, just like in my own experience, that helped my faith. I was thinking, yeah, he's really there. Something's really there. But at the same time, because it was exploitative, I easily lost my faith. I just forgot it. Even though I gave this promise, please help me. After that, I just forgot about it in a very short time. So that's the problem about trying to use the Lord or his devotees, that one forgets very, very easily. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, or maybe this is from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, I forget. But anyway, this type of faith is called samajika shraddha, which means it's very, very pliable. It's almost non-existent. It's a fake faith. Actually, in the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 9, we just read this the other day, that verse, Shraddhadana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapyamang Nivartante Mrityu Samsaravartmani, that those that don't follow the strict Vedic path, Dharmasya, that refers to sadhana. If you don't have faith in the direction of the Shastras, then that's ashraddhadana. And you're going to stay in this material world and suffer. And so in the purport of that 9.3, Srila Prabhupada says that so-called faith like this is no faith. It doesn't exist. So even though this happens, it's practically no faith at all still. Compassionate Vaishnavas headed by Lord Shiva, headed by Jesus, in this example, they give material enjoyment if they're asked for it. It's similar like a child. Anybody that's got a child, you know how difficult it is to say no. If they're in the store and they see some candy or if they see some toy, it's almost impossible to say no. At least I found that. It was really, really tough. Even though it's not good for them, it's a toy, they're going to get tired of it and throw it away, and they're going to come back for more. But still, just because you've got so much compassion, even though you know it's nonsense, they're going to get tired of it, still you give it to them. Why? Because you're just overcome by affection for the child. So similarly, Lord Shiva, in the same way, he kind of spoils the living entity, spoils the children, by giving them things that are ultimately not good. So we know that Lord Shiva, he's known as Ashutosh. Another name for him is Bolinath, which comes from Hindi, and it's not exactly a very attractive name, but anyway, he is known as that. It kind of means naive. Bolinath, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It means someone who's innocent, very gullible, very easy to please, and you get what you want. So that's Lord Shiva. And the same with Ganesh, actually. The same. People worship Ganesh. Why? Because he takes away all kinds of obstacles. Whereas Vishnu is called Hari. Hari means he gives difficulties. He takes things away. He wants to ultimately take away our suffering, but he also takes away all kinds of material opulences for our own good. So he gives obstacles in order to make us stronger. So that's the difference. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So we're at, is this number 4? Yeah, this is the 4th point. About the Rudra expansions of Lord Shiva. So there's 11 Rudras. We remember Lord Brahma, at the beginning of creation, he became angry at the Kumaras, and then, generated by passion, he had anger sprout from his eyebrows, and that was the birthplace of Rudra. So Rudra is generated by passion that's partially touched by ignorance. So this is all explained in the purport that we read back in the 3rd canto, that there's all these different expansions. So we've listed them here, their different names, and also where they reside, because after Rudra came from the forehead of Lord Brahma, they were going to make a big disturbance. So Lord Brahma said, "Don't cry. I'll give you residence." And these are the different residences that are listed here, and this is where he can be found even now, all of the Rudra expansions. The first one, named Manu, he is situated there in the heart, Hrit. So in the Bhagavad Gita, it describes the Rudra principle that Kama is within everyone's heart, because we have ahankara. The ahankara was given to us at the beginning of creation when we entered this material world. It was given by Rudra, and it's there within the heart. We have lust, we have hankering, And Rudra is there within the heart, this expansion, and when our lust, our passion is not satisfied, that's when Rudra comes out. The anger comes out, originates from our heart, and then if you go to the next one, then the next expansion is within the senses. So not only is it within the heart, but it comes out of the senses. It comes out of the eyes, out of the hands, out of the legs. You know, if somebody gets angry, you can just see they have like red hot eyes. They clench their fists. We start kicking our feet. We all experience that. And law enforcement officials, you know, the cops, they look for these symptoms in somebody to see if they're going to do something, you know, because the Rudra principle is acting. You can actually see it in every person. As soon as that's there, Rudra's manifest. Another symptom is in the life air, ashru, that you start to breathe really heavily. So within our own body and consciousness is Rudra, and then also he's throughout the elements, just like Vyoma in the sky. You know, when there's lightning and thunder, powerful storms, that's all a manifestation of Rudra. It's like very scary and destructive. And the same within Vayu. It's hurricanes, cyclones, very destructive forces. Agni, there's another residence. You know, it's like they had these huge forest fires in California, and I forgot what the name of the place. I think it was Paradise or something, some name like that. So there's we read some stories on it, heard some stuff on the news, but it was a conflagration. People, I think hundreds of people were trapped. And I think 100 people died, something like that. But they were burned to death, you know, trying to run. They were jumping in the lake, running into parking lots or wherever they could. But some of them, while they were running, their shoes were melting, and then they just fell and consumed. So certainly, within Agni, there's a Rudra principle. And also Jalam, water, you know, tsunamis, floods that kill hundreds of thousands of people sometimes. Mahi, the earth, you know, just like here in Hawaii, we have volcanoes, sometimes such a destructive force, volcanoes, earthquakes. Not only that, what's produced by Mahi, which, you know, the forms of the living entities, you know, there's like powerful forms like lions and tigers, snakes, crocodiles. I mean, there's so many of them, you know, they are scary. Those are all manifestations of the Rudra principle. Similarly, Kala, this expansion, he resides within the sun, within Surya, taking away the life of the living entity. So you know, if you've ever been in a situation out in the desert or something, you know, you just get parched and you can die of heat stroke. Powerful influence. And similarly, Vamanadeva, this is another one of his names, he resides in Chandra, in the moon. Chandra is he who are the power that controls cold. So, you know, like ice, snow, snowstorms, anywhere where there's cold, it can kill. That's also a Rudra principle. And lastly, this expansion, Drita Vrata. Drita Vrata, it means tapasya. He resides in tapasya and austerity. Austerity can make one very powerful and also very hard-hearted and easy to blow up with anger. So just like Durvasa Muni, he became so envious of Maharaja Ambarish, and he exhibited the Rudra principle by trying to destroy him, you know, also with pulling out some of his hair and plucking on the ground, just like Lord Shiva. He created a big demon. Similarly, Shringi became angry. He succumbed to anger, and he cursed Maharaj Parikshit. So these are all different manifestations. These Rudras residing in all these different elements within our own body, they become manifested at the time of Pralaya, out of the fire emanating from Anantasesha at the bottom of the universe, and they destroy everything. So it should be noted that some of these expansions of Lord Shiva, these Rudras can also be living entities, jivas in other words. I haven't been able to find. It's in Russian. Somebody, one sannyasi, my wife was telling me. He listed all of this stuff with a lot more, but it's in Russian, so maybe one day we're going to translate it. Okay, we're going to go to point number 5, our last point, and that is about this wonderful, awesome form of Nataraja. So to quickly go through this, if you're looking at the screen, if you're looking at my pointer, every single aspect of this form, as I mentioned, there was 9 main deity forms of Lord Shiva, and this one is the chief. You can say it's the chief. So Nataraja. So at the top of his head, I know it's very difficult to see, but there's a form of Ganga. Usually she's like sprouting out, but there's actually a deity of Ganga on top of his head. That means he always keeps the lotus seed of Lord Vishnu with it on his head, and he also has the moon on his head, which is the controller of the mind. And then we see that all around him we have this effulgence. So that represents a lot. It's in a circle. So this represents that Lord Shiva is Maheshvar. He's the Lord of all creation, and that everything is cyclical. See, it's done in a circle, and that means that everything within the universe, because he's the Lord, Maheshvar of everything. So there's, starting from days, nights, phases of the moon, the seasons, all the way up to the calculations for the events in universal time. We got the kalpas, the mahakalpas, the divya yugas, the manvantaras, all the way up to Lord Brahma's lifetime. These are all done in cycles. So that's what this represents. And then on the outer rim, you see it's all on fire. So that represents, as it said in this verse, antakale. So antakale vyapatadita kalapaha. So that antakala, that's pralaya, because he's the Lord of time. So the fire of devastation is represented there, which happens also cyclically, the change of every manvantara at the time of our death, and also at the devastation of Lord Brahma's day up to his lifetime. Those are all different types of pralayas. We experience our own pralaya when we die, but there's all kinds of universal pralayas as well. So that's represented by this ring of fire, which is the fire of devastation. And then it's hard to see in this one. I just really like this one, so I chose. But there's other Natarajas that are maybe more elaborate, but this rim, it has an inner and an outer rim. So on the inner rim, there's usually a secondary rim, and what the inner rim represents is a devastation of water. So that was described in the purport especially, that after the universe is destroyed by fire, then after that there's the Samvartika clouds that come and inundate the universe, depending on what portion of it, what type of devastation it is. The Manvantara, the change of Manvantara, the lower and the middle planetary systems are destroyed, inundated with water, and then during the pralaya at the end of Brahma's day, that goes all the way up past Swargaloka. Everything is destroyed, and then at the end of the universe, everything is destroyed at the end of Brahma's lifetime. So this represents the pralaya of water, the inner ring, and then the outer ring is the devastation of fire, and then it's a glaring effulgence. You can imagine what it represents. Lord Shiva is hard to look at when he is doing his nritya dance. He's so effulgent, and it represents that he's the primeval Lord in his form of coming from Shambhu. And he is the Lord of Prakriti. He's the Lord of Durga, which is the material cause. He is Nimitta, which means the efficient cause. So Durga is the material cause, and Nimitta is the efficient cause. So for you remember that, just very quickly, Aristotle has 4 causes. There's You know, just like if you want a house, that's the final cause. But before that, there's a material cause, which means all the ingredients, you know, the brick and mortar. And then there's got to be a formal cause, which is like the plans from the architect. And then you have the efficient cause. The efficient cause is the guy that's going to build it. He's the building crew. So Lord Shiva is like the building crew, the efficient cause, the nimitta, whereas Durga is the efficient cause. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Durga is the material cause, and Lord Shiva is the efficient cause. Sorry, I'm trying to move quickly. Okay, going on. Now, let's look here. He has scattered hairs, just like it's described in this verse. Vyukta jala kalapaha, that his bunch of hair is scattered. And this is what one of the things, besides his laugh is called utra, which is very loud, and utahasa, his laughing is devastating. It's just like clouds thundering. So she's remembering this, Daksha's wife, Prasuti. So his hair is scattered when he's dancing. This is a very significant sign also. If you look here, if you count these matted hair, it comes in sections. So you count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the left and 5 on the right. So there's 10 altogether. So what do those 10 represent? It represents that when he dances his dance of destruction in this form, that nobody can stop him. Not anyone in the 10 directions. So the 10 directions are called the Deepalas. And I wanted to go through this really quickly because it represents north, south, east, west, northeast, southeast, northwest, and southwest. In each of these directions, there is a controller according to where the planets are situated. So they are Kuvera, Yama, Indra, Vayu, Varuna, Agni, and then Nriti, which is a form of Parvati, and all the different planets we mentioned before, the Navagrahas, they're all in here. You know, we got Buddha, Mangala, Surya, Shani, Brihaspati, Shukra, Chandra, Rahu. These are all mean things to me because when I do yagyas, we do Navagraha. So all of these planets, Mars, Mercury, the Sun planet, Jupiter, they all have influences. And Lord Shiva, when he dances, he scatters all of the Dikpalas everywhere. They run for cover, but there's nowhere to go, nowhere in creation. So now look here. There's a scattered hair, and then we go over here to the upper left hand. He's holding a tongue of fire in his left hand. So that represents the Lord Shakti. This is Durga. Which is all the power of the universe is within the palm of his hands. And then if we go over here, you see he's holding his drum. The drum is called the, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly because there's no dicritical, but I guess it's a Damaru drum. Anyway, din din drum. So he holds that in his upper right hand, and this signifies all of the sounds within the universe, and he plays it rhythmically. So we know that the source of all sounds is the original sound, which is the Omkara. Everything within this world is a manifestation of sound. Sound has put us in this material world, and sound can take us out of this material world. So this is represented by this Damaru drum of Lord Shiva, the rhythmic sounds of the cosmos. And then we go down here to his left hand. I'm sorry, his right hand? Right hand, excuse me. His right hand. Oops, wrong mouse. Right here. His right hand. This is, it's better depicted in other images, but again, I really like this. This is about to form the Abhaya Mudra. Abhaya is giving blessing to everyone, that we take shelter of Lord Shiva in his capacity of being the greatest devotee of Lord Shankarshan. Then he blesses us with Abhay, with fearlessness. And then we go to this hand right here. Now this is another type of mudra. This is called the elephant trunk mudra, the Graha Hasta pose. So he's got this limp wrist, and his fingers are pointing downward. So what is he pointing to? He's pointing to his left foot, which is upraised. So his foot is going up, which means if we take shelter of his lotus feet, then we can be elevated. We have to take care of take shelter of his instructions. It's not that we call ourselves followers of Lord Shiva and don't follow his instructions to take shelter of the Supreme Lord. But if we do, then there is a path of liberation. That's represented by his upraised left foot pointing, and he's pointing his finger in the elephant pose downwards. And then what is his right foot on? This is the living entity. He has a particular name. His name, this dwarf at his feet that he's crushing, his name is Apa Smarna Murti. Isn't that interesting? Apa Smarna Murti. This represents a jiva. The jiva is in a forgetful state, and therefore he is full of fear. That's why he's under his foot. Lord Shiva doesn't want to do this, but in order to teach the living entity, he has to give them all kinds of troubles, poking them with his trident, which is the three modes of material nature and also past, present, and future, time. So, but you'll see this jiva who's being crushed. He's on a lotus. The lotus is is what Lord Shiva is situated on, and similarly, the jiva, his original nature is that of a divine nature. That's why he's on the lotus as well. Just like, and this is my closing statement. In the 11th canto, it's described, Dvitya, or Bayan Dvitya Dinadeshitasya Ishad Apetasya Viparina Smriti. So Apetasya means when one has turned away from the Lord and become absorbed in something else, some other thing. Nothing is beyond the Lord, but because we're trying to absorb in something other than the Lord, we become forgetful, and therefore asmriti, or just like it's depicted here, the asmara murti, the living entity, becomes forgetful. But by taking shelter of Lord Shiva, then that remembrance can be awakened. So that was the 5th point. And then to go over this one more time, what I tried to present was that Lord Shiva, the awesome Lord of destruction, I tried to explain, one, that what Siva-tattva is, how he acts within the universe, 2, how the celebration of Lord Shiva's festivals are even found in popular culture nowadays in a perverted way. 3 was that the Rudraksha beads, they're very, very potent. They come from the tears of compassion of Lord Shiva. Unfortunately, if someone utilizes them to get rid of suffering, but then he doesn't change his heart, he doesn't change his activities, then it nullifies everything that they were supposed to do. 4 was the 11 Rudra expansions, how they're within our own body, our own consciousness, and within the elements of the universe. And then 5 was the significance of this form of Lord Shiva known as Nataraja, the destroyer of the universe. So this is the verse, and I'm going to open this up, unmute everybody if anyone has any questions or if they'd like to ask.
Good.
Sorry, that was a little long-winded.
No, that was a fun class. It's one of those classes you're going to have to go back, and I'll have to go back and listen to again. It was power-packed. One quick question. You mentioned something I guess I don't remember.
Before you say, Kandita, what, I'm sorry, don't lose your train of thought. Kandita, which diagram did you want me to go back to? Because she can be looking at this while
she can go first.
You were, towards the end there, you were talking about, like, you were saying you can see here the elephant and in the direction it's pointing at, and, it's just like towards the end there. And so, I could tell you were talking about something that was in the diagram, which, by the way, has been very, very helpful. My gosh, it's so detailed. And really gives an understanding. But
This one?
yeah, you were anyway, so all we could see was Lord Shiva's sculpture there, so it kind of got lost there. But
was it this one?
Just towards the end there. Just towards the end there.
I'm not sure which one, but anyway.
It was the other diagram. Well, I don't know now. See, I don't know, but no, not that. That was a really good diagram too. No, I guess it was
this one.
One before. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, a lot of diagrams.
Yeah. Anyway, I
sorry.
know it's going on.
Okay.
But
Sorry.
Really wonderful class.
Thank you. I always have this fault about trying to throw in too much stuff. I had a lot more stuff. I said, oh God, this is not going to work. Everyone is going to be, it's going to be too overwhelming. But anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted you, Narahari Prabhu.
Oh, I just wanted to ask, did you say, I'm pretty sure you said, that Prabhupada said that Lord Jesus has his own planet? And if you did say that, where is that a reference to that? I wanted to share, if that's true, I want to share it with one of my students who's the Christian minister.
Okay, well, I could look it up on the database. There's a room conversation sometime. I don't know, I heard a long time ago.
It'd be nice to be able to have that reference rather than just say it, because I'm, as a teacher, I'm hesitant to say something that's, there's a lot of folklore in ISKCON. And
Satyaraj, he wrote a book about Christianity and Krishna consciousness, and I'm sure he's got all kinds of references in there. I haven't got a hold of the book, but I know he wrote it. And for sure.
Oh, what is it? What is that? That'd be a great book to get a hold of.
I think it's called Krishna and Christianity, something like that. It's one that Satyaraj wrote.
Oh. Okay. So, all right, well, if you could get me that reference about Prabhupada saying that he had his own planet, and it kind of starts, you kind of start wondering from there. I mean, the thought runs through my mind, well, Prabhupada was, at minimum a Shakti Vaishavatar. Does Prabhupada have his own planet? Anyway, it's, kind of crazy thoughts go in my mind. So I just wanted to have a reference from that, make sure it's not ISKCON folklore. But did you say that Lord Shiva is Vishnu-tattva, and then when he enters the material nature, then he becomes Siva-tattva? It's not a separate expansion of Krishna that starts out as just, pure Siva-tattva, but it's Vishnu, a separate Vishnu-tattva that's Lord Shiva, who's Vishnu-tattva, and then he comes and he's... Did I get that right?
Okay, so luckily we have the chart right on the screen. There you go.
Oh, let me look at my phone again. I've got it in my pocket here, so I'm doing a bunch of stuff. Okay, I'm on. You go through that again. And I was watching at that point, but I guess it went over my head.
Tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready. I'm on the.
Did you see my pointer?
No.
Oh.
It's kind of hard. Oh, yeah, I see it now. Let me just.
Okay, so here's Sadashiva Loka. So the top portion is Sadashiva and the bottom portion is Mahakaladam. And then right next to that is Shambhu. So Shambhu is an expansion of Sadashiva, and Shambhu is Vishnu-tattva, that expansion. But when Rama Devi takes the glance and delivers it to Shambhu, and then it stagnates Maya. When they unite, then he becomes Siva-tattva. And then he's known as Shiva at that point.
One more time. You cut out for just a second, but one more time.
Shambhu is an expansion of Sadashiva, of Ishana. So Shambhu he looks just like we see Lord Shiva. But all of these forms, all of our forms, everything is Krishna's form. So that form of Shambhu, that is a Vishnu form. But when he comes in contact with Maya, that's when he becomes Shiva. And that's when he gets his Trishur. And that's when he's the Lord of Mahadam. So Shambhu is on Sadashiva Loka, and then Shiva is in Mahakaladam.
So Shambhu is Vishnu-tattva.
Yes. This form is, although it's confusing because sometimes he's called Shambhu, but you got to understand the context.
Vaishnavadavita Shambhu.
Just like Lord Shiva, another one of his Rudra expansion, his name is Vamanadev. But he's not the Vamanadev. So this Shambhu, this form, is still Vishnu-tattva. He only becomes Siva-tattva when he unites with Maya. So he's like the Vaya medium.
Wish I had more brain power, but yeah, cool.
In the excellent class, just riveting. Thank you so much for all the research and the visuals. Hope you can hear me. I'm in the car, but I was at home for the whole class. Just now you said Vamanadev, and when you were reciting the, was it 11 representations? Yeah, Rudra. You said Vamanadev, but I looked at it and it's on your chart and it's spelled Vamadev. Which one is correct?
Oh, maybe that's my goof. Maybe I goofed. Maybe it's not Vamanadev. I swear I saw Vamanadev. Well, so maybe I goofed. Boy, you're so exact. Jeez, and I'm so sloppy. Thanks for pointing that out.
We should all be so sloppy, but anyway. So Vamadev, you think is the correct?
Oh, it's Vama. Let's go check it out. Vamadev, not Vamanadev. Ah.
That's why you pay me the big bucks to be the proofreader for your newsletter.
Okay, I goofed.
And what would be extreme, because Ishana, whom you just mentioned, he wasn't named in that chart, but that was extremely helpful and revealing to hear that, let's say, an expanded explanation of the expansion, the original 4 expansions. So if you ever have time in a future class to repeat a little bit of that, it'd be very helpful. Thank you so much.
Let's see. Chart. I'm going to try and pull this up. Scans. Anybody see this? I'm blowing it up. I assume you can see this. So right up here in the left, or in the right northeast corner, that's Ishana, which is Mahasankarshan. That's another one of his names. So, anyway, there we go. Let's see. Pushkar says, regarding the end of devotees of Lord Jesus Christ, they go to heaven. That is all. That is a planet in the material world. Yeah, okay. A devotee of Lord Jesus Christ is one who is strictly following the 10 commandments. Now, just like the commandment, thou shalt not kill, this is moral instruction for the sinful man, similar Lord Buddha. This is amazing. You found it so quickly. Look at that quote. Pushkar immediately found it. Letter to Bhagavan, March the 2nd, 1970. You want to copy that out of the chat, Narahari Pro? It's there. He found it immediately. Can anybody hear me? Just want to make sure.
Oh,
okay.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I didn't know I was muted. I was speaking. I was trying to be quiet because I'm doing stuff. So was Pushkar clarifying that Lord Jesus has his own planet, but it's a heavenly planet? Somehow my brain, just on its own, was thinking that he has his own Vaikuntha planet.
Oh, I didn't want to give that impression. I didn't want to.
That's the impression. No, it wasn't your fault. It was my fault. But somehow I was thinking, oh, he has his own planet. In other words,
no, I don't want all your Jesus, Krishna, and Christians to bloop, but it's just the way.
No, you just got it straight for me. Okay, got it. So it's a heavenly planet, that Jesus has, that Prabhupada was referring to. Correct? To make sure I got it right.
Yeah. I just printed it. I could give you more of the letter. You could find it easy.
Okay, good. All right. Wow.
Actually, it's a pretty big letter. I didn't want to put the whole letter on there, but that was there. So. There's a whole bunch of stuff here. It has like the personal form of Maya is Durga. He's got all kinds of stuff in here, and her different expansions like Bhadrakali, Chandrika, Brahmasamhita. It's all described, but they act as a shadow of Govinda. As such, when a devotee is fully surrendered to Krishna, Maya does not disturb him anymore under the direction of the Lord. So Krishna is always supreme. The pradhan is the ingredient part of the material energy. Yes, Maya is covering all the material energies. Therefore, one who is materially advanced, covered with riches, covered with learning, covered with fame, or covered with any material opulence is understood to be covered with Maya. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, Jada Vidya Shab Maya Boy Bhav. The material opulences are expansions of Maya's influence. So, like that. So many things in that letter.
Wow, nice.
I would speculate that, help me out here, that if Jesus has a planet in the heavenly planets, that maybe he trains his followers further to take them higher from there.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're going to start preaching that, you may as well start walking around with your hand twisted over your face, touching your nose by reaching around your neck.
I'm only saying that because I've got a student. He's the senior minister at Unity Church. He's a real big shot around the world. And he's chanting 16 rounds, and he's getting initiated. He's a real... But any cool Christian stuff I like to share with him.
Yeah.
He loves it.
I don't know if anybody else...
Who was it who said the last Christian died 2,000 years ago? I mean, I know Prabhupada said it, but he was quoting somebody else. Anyway, it's kind of funny, tongue-in-cheek, sardonic.
Govinda says that.
Yeah, so you know who that one person was then. Jesus Christ, still.
But does anyone else have similar experiences like me? I mean, I really, before I became a devotee, I really had personal experiences with Jesus, giving me material.
But Ram, you say you forget about it. You forgot about it as soon as it happened. Like we have all these guys who are surrendering to Jesus. They don't seem to forget about it. They're really into it.
Well, that's what happened to me after I came down off my experience, or I got my
you got your toy airplane, right?
I got my airplane. Actually, I was more innocent. I was doing the rosary for a little while there. But I'm just saying that I had some real, genuine, tangible experiences with Jesus. But
I mean, it could just be a fluke that you got that airplane.
Yeah.
Maybe everyone else there was praying to Jesus too. It was a Christian club, right?
The problem is I didn't have good association anywhere, so you couldn't cultivate it. So it wasn't until I became a devotee, that you start to really appreciate Jesus. Finally, so.
Well, then,
anyway.
Lord Jesus say, I have more to tell you. I mean, he just barely gave them the basics, and mainly in the Bible, it seems like he's just doing all he can to just convince people who he is. And, there's no details about the spiritual world or, about God the Father or anything, as we know. And so it seems like, and then he said, I have more to teach you, but you cannot bear it now. So it seems like, if there is a planet with that he has, that's where he teaches them more. But Srila Prabhupada, you know, he doesn't need a separate planet to teach us more. I mean, he's just right there in Krishna Loka, and you know, the devotees that left their bodies just before leaving them, like Mula Prakriti, you know, she strictly followed the 4 regulated principles and was chanting 64 rounds every day for years. And she was saying on her deathbed, she was, a few days beforehand, she was saying, she was conscious to the very end, and she was saying Srila Prabhupada was revealing so much to her. So, you know, everything will be revealed to us, anything that we need to know by Prabhupada. And, you know, there's no need for us to go to a Prabhupada planet. You know? And he said to us so many times, we go back home, back to Godhead, you know, if we just follow strictly. And, you know, he was right there. I was there with so many devotees in the LA Temple Room, and he said that. He chanted 16 rounds every day and strictly follow the 4 regular principles. You will go back home back to Godhead, and devotees just were silent, looking around at each other. They were just incredulous. And he said, yes, I will I guarantee it. And then everybody was like, you know, Jai Srila Prabhupada, you know, so there's, you know, no need for a Prabhupada planet. You know.
By the way, I wasn't thinking that Prabhupada had a planet. I was only because when I thought that Jesus had I misunderstood that Jesus had a planet in Vaikuntha, then I was thinking that sounds strange, because then maybe Prabhupada would have one. No, I'm a firm believer, just like you. Prabhupada has given us everything, and I heard him. I've mentioned this many times in class in D.C. No, it was in Baltimore when Prabhupada said same exact thing at the end of the class. Just chant your 16 rounds, follow the 4 principles. End of this life, go back home, back to Godhead. I'll never ever forget that. And I have complete faith in that. Complete faith.
This lifetime, he said.
And I think at the very end is when absolutely in this lifetime. Yeah, the end of this life, go back to home, back to God. And we're already partially kind of there. This class is not the material world. This is cyber sangha. I mean, this is a Vaikuntha place that we tune into every day, and we're there. And as much as we're purified by it and remembering through the day, we're there. We're sagwanam samatichaitam brahmabhuyaya kalpate. That when we're engaging in devotional service, hearing and chanting, we become transcendental to the modes of material natures and come to that level of Brahman on the spiritual plane. Yeah, I've got complete faith. I'm a strong believer. Do the basics, stay out of trouble, and you don't have to open have thousands of disciples and open hundreds of temples. You just Hanuman and the spider. I feel like a little tiny spider just doing a little something. And I have complete faith. I'm going back to Godhead at the end of this life as long as I don't mess up. The Sangha sure helps a lot. All of your association.
This is definitely transcendental.
I don't know where I'd be without the Sangha.
Nice. With that, maybe we should go ahead and close up because it is late. It's already 7:30.
Wow. Yeah, great class, Ron. I'm definitely going to go back and listen to this one.
Thank you, Feroz. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai, all glories to Prabhupada. Haribol.
Haribol.